Your Honor, this is larger than a marriage. This is about betrayal, lies, and a shattered family. The words hung in the air, reverberating among the crowded courtroom like an impending storm. It wasn't a trial anymore. It was the day that the whole world would hear the truth regarding the Brown family. A family once used as an example of the strength of unity and love, now torn asunder by sorrow, jealousy, and rage. There wasn't an empty seat in the room. Reporters from the big networks huddled shoulder to shoulder, their cameras at the ready, eager to catch any hint of emotion. Supporters of the reality show Sister Wives had camped outside the courthouse hours in advance, hoping to see a glimpse of the family they had followed for more than a decade. But today, there were no smiles, no posed family pictures, no gentle lighting and TV crews perfecting life. Today was raw. Today was real, and today, it was war. The atmosphere, the air was thick, nearly suffocating. A low murmur of whispers moved around the room as individuals shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but even a faintest sound seemed oppressive in the silence that remained. A sense of electric anticipation, such as the air prior to a lightning flash, hung in the air. At the center of it all sat Robyn Brown, her face white as a ghost, her hands shaking as she grasped a tissue so tightly it was about to be destroyed. She wasn't nervous, she was afraid. She was nervous. She was afraid. She glided slowly towards the witness stand, her heels clicking on the wooden floor. Every step was weightier than the last, burdened with years of secrets and unspoken shame. Behind her, in the family rows, Christine Brown occupied the very first row, her body rigid and tense. Her knuckles were strained white from holding her hands so tightly. Janelle Brown was beside her, already crying as she quietly mouthed a prayer. Even Mary Brown, normally so reserved and calm, seemed about to explode. Her eyes were puffy from crying, her jaw clenched in anger and pain. The dysfunctional family on parade. They had all lived together for years, or at least shared the same aspiration. An aspiration constructed by Kody Brown, the patriarch of this massive non-traditional family. Kody was always the charming one, the big picture guy. He talked of love, faith, and a higher purpose. To the world at large, he was the charming patriarch of a huge and devoted polygamous family. But close up, it was much grimmer. And now those grim realities were going to be exposed to the world. At the defense table, Kody sat tense as a snake ready to strike, his jaw clamped so tightly it seemed to hurt. His usual golden locks, once a testimony to his outgoing TV persona, now lay limp and slightly bedraggled. His eyes blazed with rage and desperation, flitting between Robyn and the judge, as if he could somehow will what was about to go down into being. This was his final opportunity to defend his reputation, to persuade the world, and possibly himself, that he was still the devoted father and husband he professed to be. But deep within, everybody knew. If Robyn told the complete truth, it would kill him. The judge takes control. The judge, a tough old man with years of experience, scanned the courtroom with narrowed eyes. He'd seen dozens of families shattered in the same room, but even he couldn't help but notice the urgency of this case. This wasn't merely a fight to the law. This was a family that millions of viewers had gotten to know and watch dissolve on national television. His voice at last pierced the tension, steady but authoritative. "Judge, Mrs. Brown, sit down." Robyn collapsed into the witness chair, gripping the wooden arms in support. Her breathing was fast, her chest rising and falling with each breath. "Judge, Mrs. Brown, you are sworn. Do you know what can happen to you if you lie in this court?" Robyn's throat constricted. She swallowed hard, her lips quivering as she strained to say something. "Robyn, yes, Your Honor." Her voice was so soft that she was almost whispering, but the microphone picked it up and sent it through the room, every word searingly clear. The world holds its breath. The whole room leaned in at that moment. The reporters readjusted their cameras. The crowd held its collective breath. Even Christine and Janelle, who had prepared for this moment for years, could feel their hearts racing in their chests. Everyone knew this was the time they had been waiting for, the time the truth would finally be revealed. And yet there was fear as well. Fear of what Robyn would say. Fear of how deep the lies actually went. Christine looked to the side at Janelle, whispering so quietly that no one else could hear. Christine? She has to tell the truth. She has to. Janelle nodded, her lips trembling. Janelle? But if she does, there's no going back. Mary sat in silence with them, eyes locked on Robyn. For years Mary had remained the silent one, stifling her pain in order to hold the family together. But now her eyes were hard, near icy. She wasn't simply sitting in while Robyn testified. She was analyzing each word, waiting to judge for herself. Robyn's silent battle. As Robyn sat beneath the blinding lights in the courtroom, she felt naked, as though the whole world could see into her heart. Memories flashed in her mind like shattered shards of a mirror. The day she met Kody, overflowing with hope and love. The day Christine wept, pleading for Kody to stay for the children. Garrison's voice, bitter and pained, crying out for being pushed aside and forgotten. And at last, the day when she knew it had all gone hopelessly out of control. Every memory sliced like a knife. Each one made her think of what she'd done, and what she hadn't. She looked at Kody, yearning for some sort of comfort or reassurance. What she got was a cold, unreadable stare. She knew that clearly she was alone. The family's silent war. The tension was not just between Kody and Robyn. It reached into every nook of that courtroom, tying everyone into a tangled web of anger, sorrow, and betrayal. Christine sat stone still, her thoughts spinning. She had been warning Kody for years that the family was crumbling. She had pleaded with him to notice the agony their children were suffering. But he had always shot her down, accusing her instead of listening. Now, looking at Robyn shaking on the witness stand, Christine felt a queasy combination of happiness and sadness. Happiness because the truth was being revealed at last. Sadness because it came too late to rescue Garrison. Janelle cried soundlessly by her side, the anguish still raw. She wasn't crying for her son alone. She was crying for the illusion of a family that had never been. Mary, however, was finished crying. She had passed the point of tears, and anger was all that was left. Staring at Robyn, her mind was crisp with bitterness. Mary thinking, you wanted him all to yourself. Well, now you have him, and the truth too. The final moment of silence. The judge gazed around the room, waiting for everyone to quiet. Gradually the commotion dissipated until only silence remained. Judge, Mrs. Brown, you may start your testimony. The world stopped. The cameras moved in close. Christine, Janelle, and Mary caught their breath. Robyn breathed raggedly, her voice shaking as she spoke the first words of her testimony. Robyn, I've remained silent for years. But today I can no longer remain silent. The courtroom exploded into gasps. And just like that, the silence walls that had kept the Brown family safe for so long began to topple. The crowd was still reeling from Robyn's initial shaking words when the prosecutor stood up from his chair, a fat stack of papers in his grasp. His footsteps echoed across the courtroom like a doom drumbeat. Each move was calculated, designed to leave no doubt. Today there would be no mercy. He halted a couple of feet in front of Robyn, his piercing eyes locked onto her like a panther eyeing its prey. The atmosphere was tense. Even a cough from the rear of the room caused a number of individuals to flinch. Prosecutor, cold but incisive. Mrs. Brown, you've spent years presenting your family to the world as one of love, trust, and unity. He paused, letting the words sink in before slamming the folder down on the podium with a loud thud. But behind closed doors, wasn't it chaos? Wasn't it lies and manipulation, especially from your husband, Kody Brown? Robyn's struggle. Robyn's throat tightened, her fingers curled uneasily around the tissue clutched in her own hands, now utterly torn apart by her incessant fidgeting. She flicked a glance at Kody. He didn't turn to her. His eyes were focused straight ahead, hard and unyielding. He might as well have not seen her at all. Taking a nervous breath, Robyn shifted back to the prosecutor. Robyn softly. We had issues. Yes, every family does. Prosecutor cutting in harshly. Problems, Mrs. Brown? 3 wives walked out on Kody. 3, your kids didn't speak to him. And your stepson, Garrison. He passed away feeling totally abandoned by his dad. The mention of the name of Garrison was like a bomb having exploded in the room. Christine let out a big gasp, covering her mouth with her hand as tears filled her eyes. Janelle completely broke down, hiding her face in her hands and weeping. Even Mary, who'd been holding back until this point, released a harsh breath, her eyes spitting with anger as if those words sliced directly into her heart. Christine blows up. Christine jumped up from her chair, her voice shaking with anger. Christine, you don't get to minimize this, Robyn. You sat there and watched as Kody pushed aside our children, as Kody pushed aside Garrison, and you did absolutely nothing. Gasps erupted in the courtroom as all turned to Christine. The bailiff moved swiftly in her direction, prepared to intervene. The judge pounded his gavel insistently. Judge firmly, Mrs. Brown, sit down. If you can't keep your cool, you will be escorted out of this courtroom. Christine's chest rose and fell with the effort she made to regain control. At last she leaned back in her seat, her face streaming with tears, her fists so hard clenched that her knuckles whitened. The outburst had rattled everyone. Everyone except Kody, who still sat motionless, like a statue carved from ice. The first major question. The prosecutor allowed the tension to simmer for a moment before speaking again. His voice was lower now, almost a whisper, but every word carried a lethal edge. Prosecutor, Mrs. Brown, you say you did nothing because you felt you were safeguarding your family, so I'm just going to ask you point blank. He pushed forward, his eyes deep into hers. In shielding Kody, didn't you ruin everyone else? The ensuing silence was crushing. Even the cameras seemed to be holding their breath. Robyn's lips shook. She opened her mouth to reply, but nothing came out. At last she strangled out a word. Robyn whispering, "Yes," the crowd responds. The whole courtroom exploded. Reporters jumped up from their seats, yelling questions at the top of their lungs. Spectators gasped, some even screaming. Christine gripped Janelle's hand as both cried openly. Even Mary released a scornful laugh, shaking her head in amazement. Mary mumbling, "Finally, the truth we always knew." The judge struck the gavel repeatedly, shouting over the commotion, "Judge, order. There will be order in this court." Gradually the commotion ceased, leaving behind a heavy, suffocating silence. Robyn breaks down. Robyn's body convulsed, as she wept, her tears landing on the wooden stand. She no longer even tried to wipe them away. Robyn sobbing, "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted to keep my family intact." The prosecutor's tone was still cold and unforgiving. "Prosecutor, and what happened to Christine's family? What did Janelle's kids have to say about it? What about Garrison? Did they not count for anything?" Robyn released a sobbing cry. "Robyn, of course they did matter. I loved them, I still love them. But Kody said, he said that if we spoke out, everything we had worked for would be destroyed." Her words quivered on the air, a bald admission that revealed a hair-raising scene. Christine speaks again. Christine stood again, her voice this time softer but infinitely more sinister. "Christine, destroyed. Robyn, we didn't destroy this family. You and Kody did." Her voice was cracking with anguish. "We lost Garrison because he felt unloved, unseen, unwanted. And you stayed silent. You could have stopped this." Robyn confronted her, crying hysterically. "Robyn, Christine, I believed silence was the only means to maintain peace. I believed if I remained quiet, perhaps Kody would get around to it. I was mistaken." Christine slumped her shoulders, grief's weight bearing her down. She sat down again, still silent. The evidence is uncovered. The prosecutor unzipped his folder and started arranging photographs and printed messages on the table. "Prosecutor, Mrs. Brown, these are text messages between yourself and Kody for the last 2 years. Throughout them, you insist on keeping some family business private, including Garrison's desperate texts to his father." Gasps spread through the audience. Christine's hand shot to her mouth, her body trembling as Janelle supported her. Prosecutor reading, "Here's one message from Garrison to Kody. Dad, I just want you to care about me like you care about Robyn's kids." The prosecutor bristled. "Mrs. Brown, did you ever show Kody this message?" Robyn shook her head, crying even harder now. "Robyn, no. Kody didn't want to see it. He said it would just create more drama." The room erupted in wails of disbelief. Even the judge's usually expressionless face flashed a moment of sadness. The ultimate question. The prosecutor's tone turned icy, slicing through Robyn's tears like a knife. "Prosecutor, so you concede, Mrs. Brown, that by concealing these messages and remaining silent, you let Garrison feel utterly abandoned by his own father." Robyn's breath was taken away. Her whole body tensed, her wide eyes fixed on nothing. At last she spoke the words nobody ever thought they'd hear. Robyn, yes, it's true. Chaos in the courtroom. The courtroom descended into chaos. Christine screamed with anguish, breaking down in Janelle's arms. Janelle wept hysterically, her whole body convulsing. Mary leaned back in her chair, tears flowing silently down her cheeks. The audience bellowed over each other, some blaming Robyn, others stating their support for her. The judge bellowed for order, his gavel pounding again and again. But it was overwhelming. Judge enraged. If this court cannot be quiet, I will have the room cleared. Gradually, agonizingly, the commotion started to subside. Kody's reaction. And throughout it all, Kody sat still, his face a blank. But behind the mask was a maelstrom. Anger, terror, and calculation churning in a mixture. He did not comfort Robyn. He did not even glance at Janelle or Christine. Instead, he glared at the prosecutor with naked hatred, challenging him to continue pushing. The section ends with silence. The prosecutor went back to his desk, content but not done. Prosecutor, no more questions for now, Your Honor. The judge nodded and made a mark in his ledger. The room was so quiet now that even the scratch of his pen was heard. Robyn slumped in the witness chair, her whole body quivering with sobs. Christine and Janelle hugged each other, both shattered by the impact of what they'd just heard. And Kody, he sat absolutely still, poised like a predator, waiting for the ideal moment to attack. The truth had been revealed, but the battle was really only just starting. The courtroom was too shocked even to comprehend Robyn's heartbreaking confession. Her soft, shattered voice, yes, it's true, reverberated in everyone's ears like a repressed melody. For a very long, torturous second, no one stirred. No one even appeared to draw breath. Then, like a dam bursting, pandemonium broke out. An explosion of emotions. Christine screamed, her voice breaking in anguish and outrage. No, you don't get to say that now. She leapt forward, her legs buckling beneath her. Her body trembled as she gripped the railing in front of her. Christine sobbing. He begged for love, Robyn. Garrison begged for his father to see him, to care, to just be there. Her cries pierced the room, drawing tears from even some of the reporters who had come expecting only scandal and spectacle. Janelle, her face red and wet with tears, grabbed Christine, trying to hold her back before security intervened. Janelle desperate, Christine, please. You'll be thrown out. But Christine couldn't stop. She turned her pain toward Robyn, her voice shaking with rage. Christine, you could have saved him. You knew what was going on. You read those messages and said nothing. Robyn's silent collapse. Robyn collapsed at Christine's words, shoulders shaking as she hid her face in her hands. Robyn sobbing quietly. I thought silence would preserve the family. I didn't know it would come to this. Her voice shattered entirely. I figured if I stayed loyal to Kody, he'd become the husband and dad we wanted him to be. The audience gasped. Even some of Kody's own supporters, who had defended him through scandal after scandal, seemed shaken. The judge steps in. Even the judge's mask of composure was cracking. But even he was having trouble maintaining order in the courtroom. Judge sharply, banging gavel. Order! This is a courtroom of law, not a circus. He stabbed his finger at Christine. Mrs. Brown, if you will not control yourself, I will have no alternative but to have you ejected. Christine stiffened, her breast heaving. There were tears streaming down her face, but she slowly sank back into her chair, holding onto Janelle's hand like a lifeline. The courtroom fell silent, but the hush was anything but quiet. It was thick, electric, heavy with hurt that could not be repressed. Mary finally opens her mouth. Mary Brown had kept quiet for much of the trial, containing her feelings tightly. But now her seething fury spilled over. She stood up, her voice firm but freezing cold. Mary, I kept quiet for years as well, Robyn. I was silent when Kody played favorites, when he broke his word, when he lied to all of us. Her voice shook, but she continued, raised, now. But you were the one he listened to. You were the one he stood up for. And you used that influence to guard him instead of guarding all of us. Robyn gazed up, her face smeared with tears. Robyn, Mary, please. I didn't hurt you. I didn't hurt anybody. Mary shook her head in bitterness. Mary, but you did. And now there's no repairing this. The children's pain. The camera operators zoomed in on Christine and Janelle, who were capturing the unvarnished pain on their faces. Garrison, Christine and Janelle's child, had cast a shadow over this trial. All testimonies, all pleadings, always came back to his memory. Christine spoke in a hushed tone to herself. Christine, he just wanted to be loved. That's all he ever wanted. Janelle rubbed her back softly, speaking in a whisper through her tears. Janelle, I should have fought harder for him. I should have made Kody listen. The audience sat in stunned silence, most of them now openly weeping. It was no longer merely a scandal. It was a tragedy, one that had broken up a family and cost someone their life. The prosecutor strikes again. The prosecutor, aware of the tenuous atmosphere of the courtroom, approached cautiously. His tone was milder now, but nonetheless possessed a commanding tone. Prosecutor, Mrs. Brown, you've admitted to staying silent, but the question now is why? Why protect Kody at the expense of everyone else, even your own stepchildren? Robyn's lips trembled. She hesitated, glancing at Kody once more. He still hadn't looked at her, his face unreadable, like a man wearing a mask. Finally, Robyn whispered the truth. Robyn, because I was scared. Scared of losing him. Scared that if the truth were to come out, everything would collapse. And I'd be nothing. Christine cursed under her breath through the tears. Christine, news flash, Robyn. It did collapse. And you still lost everything. A shocking revelation. The prosecutor pulled out a sheet of paper from his file, his face stern. Prosecutor, Your Honor, the court must be made aware of this message. It was sent by Garrison to his father, just 2 weeks prior to his death. The judge nodded gravely. Proceed. The prosecutor cleared his throat and continued to read. Prosecutor, reading, Dad, I don't know what I did to make you hate me, but I'm tired of trying. If you want a relationship with me, you'll have to fight for it. I'm tired of fighting alone. The words seemed to hover in the air like a specter. A collective sob coursed through the courtroom. Christine wailed, her sobs so raw and agonized that even the bailiff's eyes welled with tears. Janelle clung to her, both women collapsing into each other's arms. Robyn covered her mouth, her body convulsing with sobs. Even Mary's stoic mask cracked, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. Kody finally reacts. For the first time, Kody moved. He stood up suddenly, his chair screeching across the floor. His face was red with rage, his hands balled into fists. Kody shouting, Enough. Stop reading those messages. You're twisting everything to make me look like a monster. The judge pounded his gavel. Judge Mr. Brown, sit down immediately, or you will be held in contempt. But Kody didn't sit. Instead, he turned on Robyn with a look of pure venom. The betrayal. Kody seething. You think you're innocent in this, Robyn? You think you can just sit there and cry while they vilify me? Robyn's eyes opened wide in horror. Robyn. Kody, what are you saying? Kody coldly. I'm saying you're the reason this family broke up. You manipulated me. You turned me against my other wives and children. You wanted them out of the way so you could have me all to yourself. Gasps filled the air. Christine was gaping at him in shock, her mouth hanging open. Janelle covered her face and could not bear to look on. Even Mary was stunned, her anger for the moment forgotten in shock. Robyn's desperation. Robyn violently shook her head, tears running down her face. Robyn, that's not true. I love them. I never wanted this. Kody drew closer, his tone full of venom. Kody, don't lie to me. Robyn, you wanted power, and now you've got it. But don't think for 1 second I'm going to take the fall for your mistakes. Robyn's tears turned into screams. Robyn. Kody, please, don't do this to me. The family looks on in horror. The other wives sat paralyzed, appalled at what they were witnessing. Christine whispered through her tears. Christine, he's turning on her just like he turned on all of us. Mary's voice was bitter, laced with decades of pain. Mary, this is who he really is. Always has been. The judge's intervention. The judge rose to his feet, slamming the gavel so hard it echoed like thunder.
Judge furious. Enough. This court will not tolerate personal attacks or emotional outbursts. He turned to Kody, his eyes blazing. Mr. Brown, you will sit down and say nothing until you are spoken to directly. Do I make myself clear? Kody lingered, then sat back slowly in his chair, his chest heaving with anger. The explosion's aftermath. Robyn slumped in the witness stand, weeping hysterically. Her mascara streaked in dark lines down her face, her tissue forgotten on the floor long ago. Christine and Janelle stood embracing, both utterly shattered. Mary sat rigidly, her complexion gray, her fists balled in her lap. The witnesses were quiet now, shocked into immobility by the raw power of what they had just been through. A quiet, shattering moment. The prosecutor moved forward once more, his voice steady and composed. Prosecutor, Your Honor, let the record reflect that in today's hearing Kody Brown tried to blame Mrs. Brown, going against his previous testimony, where he took complete responsibility for his actions. The judge nodded sternly. Duly noted. Robyn glanced up, her eyes puffy and pink. At that moment, she understood something horrifying. Kody would do anything, even sacrifice her, to save himself and the family. The family was already gone. The section concludes. As the judge adjourned court for a moment, the courtroom cleared slowly, folks murmuring in shocked tones. Christine and Janelle held on to each other like storm-tossed lifeboats. Mary exited silently, her expression impassive. Kody stormed for the door, his fists bunched, not wanting to look at anyone. And Robyn? She remained, slumping in her seat, by herself. The now separate family had come to its breaking point, and there was no turning back. The courtroom was still charged as the gavel of the judge rang out like thunder rolling. The recess was over, but the atmosphere was thicker than before. No one said a word when everyone sat down. Held and Bray, when everyone sat down. Christine and Janelle held onto each other's hands, like survivors of a hurricane. Mary sat by herself, her expression blank, a tightly held mask of decades of suffering. And in the defense table, sitting stiff and unmoving, was Kody Brown, a man prepared to battle for his life, regardless of whom he had to annihilate to accomplish it. Robyn continued to shake, wiping at her tear-stained face with a tissue. She glanced to Kody for solace, for even the briefest look of encouragement. But Kody did not glance at her, not even once. The calm before the storm. The judge leaned forward, his tone stern. Judge, Mr. Brown, the court will now resume cross-examination. You remain under oath, and you are again reminded that perjury will carry extreme penalties. Kody nodded rigidly. Yes, Your Honor. As the prosecutor stood up, the room fell silent. All of the cameras zoomed in, waiting to get the shot that would make this trial one to remember. Prosecutor, Mr. Brown, you testified before that you acted in the best interest of your family at all times. Is that true? Kody serenely. That's true. Prosecutor, but we've heard evidence, from your wives and even from Robyn Brown herself, that you frequently gave favoritism, ignored some of the children, and isolated others. Are they all lying, Mr. Brown? Kody bristled, his jaw clenching. Kody, I wouldn't say lying, but they're mistaken. They don't understand the whole picture. Christine's face contorted with fury. Christine muttering, we understand a lot. The prosecutor tightens the net. The prosecutor moved forward, his tone firm but even. Prosecutor, let's discuss Garrison Brown, your son. As evidence was heard earlier, he continued to reach out to you, wanting a relationship. These are his words, Mr. Brown, not mine. He displayed a printed text message. Dad, I just want to feel like I matter to you. The prosecutor's tone grew sharper. Can you tell me why, even with these requests, you did not respond? The courtroom leaned forward, each ear straining to catch the words of Kody's response. Kody's eyes flashed over at Christine and Janelle, then back at the prosecutor. Kody coldly, because Garrison didn't want a relationship. He wanted control. He wanted to challenge my authority as the head of the family. Gasps erupted in the room. Christine slammed her fist onto the bench, rising to her feet in anger. Christine screaming, what right do you have? He was your son. He only wanted love. The judge rapped his gavel angrily. Judge, Mrs. Brown, sit down or you will be removed. Christine's chest rose and fell, but she slowly collapsed back into her seat, crying openly. Kody's calculated shift. The prosecutor stepped closer, his eyes cold. Prosecutor, so you're blaming Garrison for your own failure as a father. Kody paused for a split second. Then, with calculating coldness, he changed tack. Kody, no, not really. Everyone stilled. It was delicate, but evident Kody was on the verge of deflecting blame. Robyn's grip on her tissue tightened. She could sense something awful brewing, and it was heading her way. The turning point, Kody leaned forward, speaking in a sleek, managed tone. Kody, the truth is, I wanted to be there for Garrison. I wanted to be a good dad to all my kids. But I couldn't because someone kept getting in the way. The room collectively caught its breath. The prosecutor arched an eyebrow. And who precisely was getting in the way? Kody swiveled around, at last catching Robyn's eye for the first time that day. Kody, Robyn.
The word hit like a bolt of lightning. Gasps came from all sides of the courtroom. Christine's mouth hung open in shock. Janelle put her hands over her face. Even Mary, who had been hurt the most, was stunned. Robyn's world shatters. Robyn whispering, What are you telling me, Kody? Kody's face hardened. Kody, I'm telling you, you manipulated me. You made me cut off my other wives and their children. You kept me from them, from Garrison, so you could have me all to yourself. Robyn shook her head wildly, tears streaming down her face. Robyn, no, that's not true. I pleaded with you to call them, Kody. I pleaded with you to be with them. Kody sneered. Kody begged or demanded. You knew exactly what you were doing, Robyn. You were always whispering in my ear, turning me against my own family. The family reacts. Christine stood up once more, her voice shaking with rage. Christine, unbelievable. You are blaming Robyn now? After everything you did? Janelle stood alongside her, her voice quivering. Janelle, you ruined Garrison, Kody. Not Robyn. You? But Mary reacted differently. Her tone was icy, nearly detached, but laced with decades of hurt. Mary, no, Christine. Consider this. Robyn was always the one he stood up for, the one he heard. Perhaps she did have more power than we knew. Christine glared at Mary. Christine, Mary, don't you dare defend him right now. Mary said nothing, she just folded her arms and turned away. Robyn fights back. Robyn faced the judge, her voice raw and desperate. Robyn, Your Honor, please. It is not true. I never wished to harm anyone. I was attempting to hold the family together, not drive it apart. The judge raised a hand, his face impassive. Judge, Mrs. Brown, you will have an opportunity to respond and redirect. For now, be quiet. But Robyn was unable to be quiet. She wheeled around to face Kody, her mouth contorted in pain. Robyn, Kody, no. We're supposed to be a team. I stuck by you through all of it. Through every fight, every scandal, every broken heart. And now you're abandoning me to the wolves? Kody didn't blink. His eyes were hard, blank, like a man who had already made up his mind. The prosecutor seizes the moment. The prosecutor's mouth curled into a thin smile. This was more than he could have wished for. Prosecutor, Mr. Brown, let me make this clear. Are you now testifying under oath that Robyn Brown manipulated you into ignoring your other wives and children? Kody didn't blink. Kody, yes. Absolutely. The courtroom exploded again, the sound deafening. The judge pounded his gavel wildly. Judge, order. Order in this courtroom. Robyn's last stand. Robyn stood up from the witness stand, her body trembling with anger. Robyn screaming, You liar. You coward. You said we were in this together. You said you loved me. Kody rose, his voice thundering over hers. Kody enraged. Love? You call this love, Robyn? You broke up my family, and now you expect me to shoulder the blame for your sins? Robyn retreated backward, as if physical blows struck her with his words. Robyn crying, No, no, Kody, don't do this to me. Please. Christine's breaking point. Christine couldn't take it anymore. She stormed forward, pointing a trembling finger at Kody. Christine screaming, You're a monster, Kody. First you abandoned us, then you blamed Garrison, And now you're blaming Robyn. There's no limit to how low you'll go, is there? Security rushed to intercept her. But Christine didn't stop. Christine, you murdered our family. And you murdered Garrison. Perhaps not with your own hands, but with your neglect, with your heartlessness. Her words cut through the courtroom, like a knife. Kody's face contorted in anger, but for the first time he couldn't speak. The judge's final warning. The judge rose to his feet, his voice booming. Judge, I will have this courtroom evacuated if order is not immediately restored. He pointed at Christine and Kody. Judge, one further outburst from either of you, and you will be spending the night in custody. Is that clear? Christine fixed Kody with a glare but managed to take a step back, her chest heaving. Kody slumped back into his seat, his fists shaking. The section closes as the courtroom hung suspended in a taut, brittle silence. The truth was clear. Kody had betrayed Robyn in order to protect himself. Robyn sat back down, utterly shattered. She gazed at Kody through tear-stained eyes, finally comprehending the extent of his betrayal. Christine held on to Janelle, sobbing through the words. Christine, he's burning everything down, and he doesn't even care. Mary sat in isolation, her face unreadable, wondering silently how they had all come to this place. And Kody, he sat with eyes ahead, unremorseful and hard, a man who would take anyone down to save his own reputation. The trial wasn't finished, but something was for sure. This family was never going to be whole again. The courtroom was quiet once more, but it wasn't the quiet of peace. It was the quiet of a battlefield after war. Everyone was emotionally shattered, held together by threads. Christine sat between Janelle and Mary, her face white, her eyes puffy from crying. Janelle held on to Christine's hand for dear life, while Mary sat rigidly, cold and distant. The three women shared pain, but were split apart by years of scars. At the defense table, Kody Brown sat up straight, his chin aloft, his jaw set. He gazed straight ahead, like a man prepared to meet whatever lay ahead. But in his heart, everyone knew he was shaking in his boots. Next to him, Robyn appeared shattered. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smudged, her tissue torn to shreds in her lap. She didn't even glance at Kody anymore. The man she'd stood up for, defended and battled on behalf of, had just cast her aside like so much trash. The judge returns. The bailiff's voice boomed like a bell. Bailiff, all rise. Court is back in session. Everyone rose as Judge Garrison swept in, his black robes billowing behind him. He appeared weary, his features creased with the burden of all that he had seen in this trial. Judge Garrison, please be seated. The room complied, the wooden benches groaning beneath the strain of so many nervous bodies. Final words before the verdict. The judge's eyes swept the room. Judge Garrison, before this court renders its verdict, I will permit brief final remarks. He addressed the prosecutor. Judge Garrison, counsel proceed. The prosecutor rose, his face serious. He spoke to the court with distinct, unshaken words. Prosecutor, Your Honor, this case was never one of legal definitions. It was one of a family, one that was broken systematically through neglect, favoritism, and manipulation. He looked at Christine and Janelle, his tone becoming softer. 2 women lost a son, 3 wives lost a spouse, and hundreds of children were left with scars that might never heal. Then his voice grew stern, as he faced Kody. The defense will say this was all confusion and miscommunication, but the evidence and Kody Brown's own words reveals a different reality. He acknowledged keeping his family isolated, favoring some children over others, and letting his choices result in tragedy. The prosecutor nodded slightly forward. We request that this court hold him responsible. He sat, the ensuing silence deafening. Kody's turn to speak. The judge looked toward the defense table. Judge Garrison, Mr. Brown, you can make a statement. Slowly, Kody stood up, adjusting his suit jacket. He did not glance at Christine, Janelle, or even Robyn. His gaze was fixed on the judge, brimming with well-practiced emotion. Kody, in a low, calm tone, Your Honor, I've been portrayed in this courtroom as a monster, a tyrant, a man who doesn't care for his children or love his wives. He drew a deep breath, his voice rising. But that's not true. The truth is, I tried to hold this family together. I tried to be a father to too many children, a husband to too many women, and it killed me. Christine let out a loud laugh, but Kody continued talking. I'm not perfect. I've made errors, but I didn't ruin this family by myself. And then with icy detachment, he turned to stare at Robyn directly. Kody, I was manipulated. Controlled, Robyn coerced me into making decisions I would never have made in my life. Gasp echoed through the room. Robyn's mouth dropped, her face white with shock. Robyn's breaking point. Robyn shrieking. Lies, all lies. She sprang to her feet, accusing a shaking finger at Kody. Robyn, you can't blame me for this, Kody. You ruined them all yourself. I begged you to be a better dad. I begged you to contact your children. Kody's face contorted with rage. Kody shouting. You begged? No, Robyn. You commanded. You wanted me all to yourself. And now you're going to pay the price. Chaos erupts once again. Christine yelled over them, her voice cracking. Christine, stop it. Just stop it. Garrison is dead, and you two are still arguing about who gets to be the victim. Janelle wept beside her, holding Christine close. Janelle, I can't take this anymore. I can't. Mary said nothing, her expression unyielding and cold, although tears sparkled in her eyes. The judge brought his gavel down so hard that it sounded like a shot. Judge Harrison, order. If there is one more outburst, I will clear this courtroom. Slowly the tumult faded away. Robyn slumped back in her chair, shaking convulsively, while Kody gazed rigidly ahead, like a statue of a man. The verdict, the judge breathed deeply, then commenced reading. Judge Harrison, after reviewing the evidence and testimony presented, this court finds as follows. The room collectively held its breath. On the charge of willful neglect and emotional abuse, resulting in the alienation of young children, the court finds Kody Brown guilty. A scream ripped from Christine's lips. She stumbled into Janelle's arms, sobbing wildly. Mary blinked her eyes, two unspoken tears falling down her face. The judge went on. On the charge of coercive control and manipulation within a polygamous home, the court finds Robyn Brown complicit. Robyn gasped, her hands racing to her mouth. Robyn whispering, no, no, please, no. The sentencing Judge Harrison. Kody Brown, you will be given a sentence of 5 years probation and required family therapy, as well as restitution payments to the involved parties. Christine's face contorted in rage. Christine, 5 years? That's all? My son is dead because of him. The judge banged his gavel. Judge Harrison, Mrs. Brown, the court has spoken. This is not the end. There may be civil lawsuits to come, but for now, justice has been served to the best that the law will permit. He turned back to Robyn. Mrs. Brown, although you are not going to jail, you will have to receive mandatory counseling and be prohibited from making decisions on behalf of the family for 2 years. Robyn erupted into tears, sinking into her chair. The last stand. As the courtroom emptied, Christine and Janelle remained seated 2 days to stand. Mary swept past them in silence, her expression impassive. Kody rose, at last turning to Robyn. For a moment, they just glared at one another. Two individuals who had constructed an empire of deception, now in ruins. Robyn tearfully. How could you do this to me, Kody? After all I've given up for you. After all we've created together. Kody's face was hard, expressionless. Kody, you never were my partner. Robyn, you were simply convenient. Robyn's knees gave way, and she let out a raw, shattered shriek. Christine's final words. Christine stood up, her voice shaking but firm. Christine, you two are perfect for each other. You ruined everything that was important. And why? Power? Control? Ego? She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I just hope the both of you have to live with what you've done for the remainder of your lives. Then she turned, hugging Janelle, and walked out together, leaving Kody and Robyn to remain in the devastation they had wrought. The twist ending. As the cameras were packed up, and the audience started to disperse, the prosecutor moved quietly over to Christine. He presented her with a sealed envelope. Prosecutor whispering, "This just arrived. Mrs. Brown, it may change everything." Christine frowned, perplexed. She opened the envelope and stiffened. There was a recorded voicemail message from Garrison, dated the evening before his murder. His voice cracked through the small speaker. Garrison voicemail. Mom, if you're listening, something went wrong. Dad told me he was coming over tonight to discuss everything, but I don't believe him anymore. Please, watch yourself. Christine's breath was trapped in her throat. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Janelle grabbed her arm. Janelle, Christine, what is it? What does it say? Christine gazed up, deathly pale. Christine whispering. Garrison, he was scared of Kody. The screen goes black as Christine's ghostly voice rings out, this isn't over. Not by a long shot.